Welcome to Sociology of Religion. I'm Lily, and today we'll be discussing whether or not religion can be seen as a source of good or evil in the world. Today, I will be taking the side that religion can be seen as a source of evil in today's society. Our first topic of discussion is a boy named Sam. He went through conversion therapy, and we'll see how horrible his trials and tribulations were just to receive acceptance from his family. Let's take a look.
I'm in this constant state of fear. My mom finally starts recognizing, you know what? Hitting him might not be working. So let's try therapy. And it started with the first few weeks. I had AIDS. I was the only gay person left in the world because the government found all the other gays and killed them as children. If they found me, they would kill me. It's the perfect way to keep a child or a teen from coming out. And we moved on to physical therapy. Physical therapy was my hands being tied down and blocks of ice being placed on my hands. Then pictures of men holding hands would be shown to me, so that way I would associate the concept of the pain of ice with a man touching me.
Looking back at Sam's story, it's easy to see how in this situation, religion can be seen as more of a harm than a help. Since his family was deeply rooted in their religious traditions, they stated that homosexuality was a sin. Not only did they believe that this practice was a sin, they also believed that it was a choice. However, from many studies that have been conducted, as well as modern science, we now know that homosexuality is not a choice, rather a biological implication that cannot be changed. They also stated that if he just changed, then they would love him again. And of course, as we know, this is another flawed type of mental thought. Our next order of business is looking at seeker-sensitive churches. As we can see from these seeker-sensitive pictures, they are very inviting and welcoming, such as the Bring Your Own God to Church poster. Well, that's great, and yes, it gives a message of tolerance and acceptance. However, this is coming from a evangelical church, so that's a little strange, especially when they have hegemonic practices and doctrine that teach them that they have the one and only truth. So why would they be telling people to bring their own gods and their own beliefs into this type of church? Well, they do this to make it seem like a welcoming and non-threatening environment. Now, when they do get you into the door, they immediately start doing biblical verses, and it can even be very discreet in how they do it. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Before 1954, the section under God was actually not in the original Pledge of Allegiance. It was added in by President Eisenhower during the 1954 communist scare of the Cold War, and so he decided to add it in. Now, the originator, Bellamy, who wrote the original United States Pledge of Allegiance, he actually was against this. However, he was overruled, and Congress went ahead and put under God into the Pledge of Allegiance. The reason why I put this into my topic of discussion was because I thought it was interesting how we have a separation of church and state, and yet you can still find many things that have to do with religion in our government, such as how children say the Pledge of Allegiance every single day in school, and they have to say under God. Now, there have been many states that have issued a file of complaint to the federal government stating that this is a violation of church and state. However, there haven't been many changes to it, but I just wanted to show how even though religion and state are supposed to be separated, they still find their way into everyday life and into government. So that was just something interesting that I wanted to share with you. Now we are moving on to more of a comedic side to seeing whether or not religion is a source of goodness or evil in the world. We'll be looking at a video clip done by South Park and on how they depict the Mormon religion.
I did. I was out in the woods, praying. I was asking God if I should be a Protestant or a Catholic or what. And suddenly, God and Jesus appeared before me. And they said I should start my own church because none of the others had it right. And that's exactly how it happened.
You see? You believe it now?
Well, yeah, sure. Why would he make that up?
Dum 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 dum.
Looking back on this clip of South Park, there are many things that we can pick apart and look at how they're looking at the Mormon religion and what they're finding fault in. But in the clip that I've shown you, what a lot of what they're trying to say is this blind faith in religion, which is not really questioning whether or not Joseph Smith actually found these gold plates and read the Mormon Bible from a hat. But they were definitely poking fun at how Joseph Smith would say something like, well, Jesus appeared to me and told me to find these gold plates that were placed here by the Indians and whatever and what have you. And so as soon as he explains what happened in this vision that he had and who came to visit him, you see people going, well, of course, you just told me face to face. How could I not believe it? So I think that in this case, what South Park is trying to say is that maybe in today's society, people need to have more of a critical mind of when it comes to religion. Next, we're discussing children's religious cartoons. I have included a religious cartoon titled Jesus Loves Me, and it's of a cute little bunny, and I think it's a chipmunk.
Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Jesus loves me, he who died, heaven's gate to open wide.
Looking at this cute little bunny and chipmunk duo, it's interesting the line in there that it says, Jesus loves me because the Bible told me so. Maybe for the age group that they're trying to go for, which looks maybe about preschool and maybe a little older, it's hard to think that these kids would understand who Jesus was and what the Bible is. It also reminds me of the Good News Club that they now have in public schools, where they have the wordless Bible. So the next topic is I decided to take a country song and pick it apart and look for both religious and patriotic references into it. So the song that I chose was Arlington by Trace Adkins, and obviously it's a song about a dead soldier who made it to Arlington, and he's telling his family that he's happy that he made it here, and one of the lines is, I can rest in peace, I'm one of the chosen ones, I made it in Arlington. So I'm one of the chosen ones. It's definitely a biblical reference, saying like he's one of God's chosen people. Also, I can rest in peace. Not many religions say that too much, except for maybe like some of the Christian that are part of the Christian faith. So I thought that was two very good pieces in the song. Also, the third, we made it to Arlington, dust to dust, don't cry for us. Again, dust to dust, I would think that would be maybe another biblical reference, since we start as dust, we end as dust. But he's also references to the afterlife. So it's, again, I think it's definitely interesting that it plays more onto the Christian faith. And when we finally found that cross, that's in there as well. So obviously it's a direct reference to the Christian faith, evangelical faith. So I thought that was just very interesting in how they socialize patriotism with religiosity, and it's seen as very normal. So the seventh item on my scavenger hunt list was this TED Talk, and so I did a TED Talk that says that science can actually explain moral questions.
In fact, the endurance of religion as a lens through which most people view moral questions has separated most moral talk from real questions of human and animal suffering. This is why we spend our time talking about things like gay marriage and not about genocide or nuclear proliferation or poverty or any other hugely consequential.
So in the TED Talk by Sam Harris, he went on to saying some pretty important things, such as how we can now use science to determine what is considered right and what is wrong. And he definitely focused on human rights and how we can say that maybe someone that is scantily clad or someone who's dressed in a burqa, they can both be oppressed at the same time for different reasons. And I thought that was very interesting. And while he was saying that we could talk to someone who dresses in a burqa right now and ask them if they're oppressed, and they could say, no, I'm not. I'm very happy with what I'm wearing and how I'm explaining and expressing my religion through my clothing, whereas he can say, now with science, we can take brain scans, and obviously this isn't happening right now, but we can use this possibly in the future and see how we can make the world a better place for people who want to express their religion in a certain way, but don't have to do it so that they're oppressed and don't have to be afraid that because they're not covered from head to foot in black cloth that some man or husband will decide to rape them because they can't control their urges. So the purpose for this whole discussion on whether religion is good or evil, I basically want to do it about not just American society, but all religions. And so I did some previous research and I found an article that it's called A Cross-Sectional Study on Factors Associated with Harmful Traditional Practices Among Children Less than 5 years old in North Ethiopia. So what this article is discussing is genital mutilation for these kids, most specifically females, in Ethiopia. And most of the time these women and children don't have a choice. It's forced upon them, and so it's usually for religious practices. And there are many things that are wrong with this. Not only, of course, it's not consensual. Second, it's obviously mutilation of someone's genitals, and that's obviously very private. Both literally and figuratively. And so I just want to explain it how far that religious practices can go and how harmful they can be. Another article that I found was Religion and Religiosity, Protective or Harmful Factors for Sexual Minority Youth. And so what this is also discussing is how religions mostly teach the abstinent-only route, which this can lead to children not being informed about how sex works and the dangers that that can happen. Whereas saying there's no such thing as safe sex, that's not only harmful, but it's somewhat untrue because you can use condoms, there's birth control. Now saying the best way to not have a baby, don't have sex, of course. But I think if these kids have this religion doctrine and go ahead and don't use it anyway, then obviously there needs to be some more talk and they need to have more resources than just don't do it, because that doesn't really help anyone, especially if these kids are going to go ahead and do it anyway. Lastly, a third article I found was Race and the Religious Context of Violence, linking religion and white, black, and Latino violent crime. So obviously this is another thing as well. This is more centered in America, obviously, but religion can have social implications such as violence. And so I thought that was very interesting too, especially that we see all over the world, like between Muslims and the Jewish-Israeli fight that's been going on for thousands of years, religion fuels violence. And so I think in religion, it does create a great platform for us versus them mentality, and so it's very easy for violence to come out of these